Peace and blessings, everybody, and everyone that has a body, and everyone that doesn't. This is our Wednesday Instagram Live, Lifting the Veil, and I just appreciate you tuning in. I see people signing in already. I'm going to bring on Suzi Lula in just a moment. She's the individual that we're going to be talking with today. And before I bring her on, just let me let you know that she's a dynamic licensed spiritual therapist, great master teacher. She's just been given the designation of a master teacher here at A.L.S.P International. She's an international speaker. She's the best-selling author of Motherhood Evolution, How Thriving Mothers Raise Thriving Children. She's a member of our A.L.S.P Board of Trustees and a very integral aspect of our community. Just graduated from the Michael B. Beckwith School of Ministry, so she's a minister as well. And she's one of those kind of beings that are deeply committed to not only her spiritual growth, development, and unfoldment, but the raising of consciousness of families, the raising of consciousness of the planet. Very committed. I've known her for years. I may even tell you a funny story about her. Let me see how I can pull her on at this moment. I'm trying to remember this technology. So she'll be on in just a moment, and remember how we. There she is, right there.
Hi, Rev.
Hi, Suzi.
Hi. So
You know what?
happy to be with you.
You're. I can't hear you. Let me see.
Can you hear
First
me
of
now?
all, let me do a test with the people that are listening to me. Can
Okay.
everyone hear me? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Just say something, people. Say, I can hear you, put a thumbs up or something. And can everybody hear me now?
I can hear
Can you hear me, Suzi? Okay, I can hear you. Say hello, Suzi.
Hi, Rev. How are you? Hi, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Outstanding. Yeah, everything's good at this moment. I was just giving them an introduction of you as a powerful spiritual therapist, a great teacher, now holding the designation of master teacher, been a therapist for many years, and graduate from the School of Ministry, now a minister, and the motherhood evolution, how thriving mothers raise thriving children. You know, you're one of those individuals that are deeply committed to your spiritual growth, development, and unfoldment, borderlining on the mystical awareness, and yet you have the capacity to bring that to such practical ways in living. So you can take the expanded mysticism and actually apply it to motherhood. You can apply it to parenting. You can apply it to obviously raising children. That's what parenting is. Obviously, we've worked together and applied it on the Board of Trustees to continue to stabilize this community in so many ways. So it's wonderful to have you on.
Thank you so much. It is so wonderful to be on. And you know, that's your teachings, right? That the spiritual isn't complete until we manifest it on the physical, right? So
Right.
To take that mystical presence and that mystical energy and frequency and assist us all to live in that conscious way and to manifest it on the physical. It's why we're here.
Absolutely. I like to say sometimes that we have impulses within us that are basically the evolutionary impulse, another name for the presence of God. But no impulse of expression is complete unless it has a universal outlet, unless it has an outlet that's more than self-serving. And this is the other thing that we impress in the A.L.S.P community, that we don't want to be narcissistic, selfish, greedy, just get, using the laws to manifest a bunch of stuff. We basically want to have an outlet of this love and this compassion and this prosperity that uplifts us, of course, but uplifts humanity. You know, without a universal outlet, that impulse is incomplete. It's immature. Let me say, I can say it that way as well. But let me ask you this. I mean, did you think that, COVID would be going on this long? I mean, when it hit us back in March, I think it was kind of a shock to many people, you know, and here we are again, both of us living in Los Angeles. And I think on the 21st, I don't know what the date is. I guess it started on the 21st. Another temporary kind of pseudo lockdown from 10 at night to sometime in the morning. And I don't know if people really thought it was going to last that long. You know, that brings up a lot of stress for people.
Yeah, and I believe that, you know, that is probably how many coped at the beginning. Oh, it's not going to last. So how can we just survive? How can we cope? How can we power through? How can we get through this period? And I think that's one of the big, you know, gifts and opportunities right now is to wake us up to a different way of life, that this isn't meant to be a temporary moment in time. It is a temporary moment in time, but the opportunity is to give us an eternal wake-up call that we decide to live our lives differently from this moment forward, you know? So I definitely think most people thought it would be temporary, and now we're moving into the winter, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's going to get colder. And so I think this is our opportunity, right, to put all these practices that we know intellectually will transform our lives. But now the universe is giving us the opportunity to put our practice where our intellect is, you know,
right.
and to really see, okay, can I take this on? Can I really have these practices become non-negotiable? Am I really able to take on that I'm here to thrive? And like you said, not only thrive within ourselves, but affect those around us, our partners, our families, our friends, our children, to be part of something that allows them to flourish as well.
Absolutely. The idea that this was going to be temporary, I didn't think it was going to be temporary. You know, I mean, I have other thoughts about what's going on. So I didn't think it was going to be temporary until powers that be got what they wanted. You know, the whole COVID thing has been politicized, and now it's being profiteered in many ways.
Yes.
But not jumping on that topic necessarily, you know, what are some of the challenges that you're finding with families, with marriages?
Well, yeah, and I think to your point, you know, we've been conditioned as a society, right, to be influenced by the external. So if it wasn't COVID, before that, corporations and, you know, the outer world has been trying to profit off of us before COVID. It's just exacerbated right now, and it's intensified, and it's hard to not see that, right? But whether it's COVID or whether it's something before, this is just intensified, but the teachings remain the same, that we're culturalized to look to the outside and to allow the outside to influence us and to affect us. And we are here to become so, you know, students of our own practice, and so students of the truth that is invisible. So it sometimes seems like it's harder to grasp because the external is just right around us. You know, well, I can see that 3 of my kids have to watch Zoom classes all day long, and that's visible to me. Or, you know, I see that my husband is out of work because of COVID, and that's visible to me. But that's our practice, is to become so enamored with the invisible and so devoted and dedicated to the invisible that can transcend, and I can bring something to those 3 kids that are on Zoom all day, or a husband who is having a hard time, you know, in his own right. So the practice is the same, and it's almost more imperative right now. It is more imperative right now. The more intense it gets on the outside, the more we have to rise up inside, right?
Right. The pressure on the inside has to be stronger than the pressure on the outside. And that's our spiritual, as you're saying, that's our spiritual path. That's our spiritual practice. And the thing about it is, whenever, whether it's on an individual level or whether it's on a mass scale level right now, the seeming suffering actually brings us closer to the presence of God if we use it wisely. So this is becoming like a push. There are people that are calling our prayer ministry more in number than ever before. There are people taking classes more in number than ever before. There are people reaching in by reaching out to understanding spiritual practice more than ever before. So though we don't like the circumstance and we don't like the nefarious politicizing of the circumstance and the profiteering from the circumstance, we can actually use it to grow and unfold spiritually. We can let it be. It's like, oftentimes when something really bad happens to somebody, when they're in a crisis, suddenly they become sober in their mind. They start doing everything necessary that they always wanted to do. Somebody gets a diagnosis of the body, and suddenly, okay, I'm not going to eat sugar anymore. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to take my vitamins and minerals. They have some kind of emergency that suddenly wakes them up. So this can be kind of like a global wake-up call, where everybody can really look at themselves. I was thinking a few weeks ago, Reverend Julie spoke at Agape, and I've always liked this sentence that she said. She said, you want to binge watch your thoughts.
What you're saying is so important, because two things I was thinking when you were speaking. One, you used the word narcissistic earlier today, but I think one thing that we misunderstand in our culture is that, we think that when someone else is suffering, we are conditioned to believe, well, I can't thrive if that person is suffering. And it's exactly the reverse, right? Because when we believe that I shouldn't thrive if someone next to me is suffering, then I end up becoming narcissistic. Because if I'm not caring for myself, if I'm not plugged in to my source and I'm not plugged in, right, then I'm going to become also anxious. I'm going to become stressed. I'm going to shrink. I'm going to become constricted. And you can feel those people, or I'll speak for myself. I know if I simply walk into a room and I don't even say a word, but I'm disconnected and I'm feeling stressed, then what it does is it sends this invisible signal to those around me. Oh, everybody's got to, walk on eggshells, or everybody's got to really accommodate how I'm feeling. And that's actually narcissistic, because other people then have to take care of me on an emotional level or on a different level. That's narcissism. But we teach in our culture inaccurately that, right, oh, I shouldn't take care of myself if someone else is. And I learned this as a mom, because we're taught to just put the other person first. But it goes back to what you're saying at the beginning about the evolutionary impulse inside of us. When I take care of myself and I'm plugged in and I say that's the most selfless thing I can do, it's saying that I trust my most innate self, that we're all givers and we're all caregivers and we're all nurturers. And of course we want to see the next person beside us not suffer. But the best way to help that person out of their own suffering is to make sure that I have something to give them. So I love what you're saying. It's just,
well, obvious. Yeah, you're giving the spiritual counterpart to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your child. If you can't give from an empty cup, you can't radiate it. There's no glow in you.
Right.
So to become a martyr is also a level of narcissism.
Right.
And so you're speaking of a deep sense of self-care, which isn't pampering. Self-care is very deep. It's very soulful. The body temple, the mental body, the emotional body, you're taking care of it so that you can actually do the work you're called to do.
Yes.
And do it well. Because if you don't take care of yourself, if you go off to do your work, it's not going to be excellent.
Yes.
It's only going to be so-so.
Yes.
And yeah. So this is I know you really bring this home for families, and you really bring this home for mothers as well. Let me ask you this: what Are you finding any unique challenges in your counseling with people during this time in families?
Well,
With anything, what's rising up for most people?
certainly, I think, because mothers and parents in general, fathers, are largely invisible in the culture. Now we've been thanking the people on the front lines, thank goodness, as well we should. But typically before COVID, nurses were also not, they're largely invisible. And parents are largely invisible in our culture. And so during COVID, they're invisible and their plight has been more challenged, right? Because it is very common now that parents, children are in front of Zoom. My son is on Zoom, his classroom is in our home, and I have a teenager, but especially parents with younger children, and they might have multiple children. They're on multiple screens in multiple classrooms. And so they have already the laundry and the dinner and the tasks of being a parent. And on top of that, they're in small quarters and needing to get along, be a teacher now, be a homeschooler. So the conditions on the outside are definitely exacerbated. All of the conditions are exacerbated. And depending on that family and their spiritual practice or how long, or deep their practice has been, it can feel very, I want to say, just like closing in, the close quarters closing in. So I have so much compassion for all relationships. I think relationships can be very challenged during this time.
So two things I'm getting from what you're saying here. One, the word patience. This is a time to exercise, not just our bodies, but to exercise patience with each other, with our spouses, our significant others. We have to actually exercise the patience because of the intensity of what we're all passing through on this unprecedented moment. And something that also came through what you said, you didn't say this, but it was underlying, and that is, being parents, we're inviting parents to really parent and not give their kids over to the government, or not look to the external authority figures to take care of their kids. And I think people do that unconsciously sometimes because they do that with themselves. They unconsciously give themselves over to an external authority figure, and they forget that they are a sovereign spiritual being that has a mind, that has a heart, that's connected to God, that's connected to source intelligence. And there's sometimes people just kind of give themselves over, and no one can take care of you better than you, and no one can take better care than your kids than you. And so we want people to mature into, to have the self-care, so that they can take care of their kids and take care of the people in the neighborhood. Because I just notice people, particularly when they're in fear, they kind of give themselves away. They kind of just become sheeple. These kind of just give themselves away to external authority figures. We advocate, definitely vote, definitely choose the person you want to be your senator, you want to be your congressperson, you want to be your president, you want to be your council person. But voting isn't an edict to give power away.
Exactly.
Voting is an edict that someone is supposed to serve you according to the plank that they're espousing. And so I just, something you said triggered that thought. As we become parents, we have to have our own authority.
Yeah. You're sovereign. You just said it. Parents, take back your own sovereign authority. You know better than anyone else what your child needs. And you're right. We have just been indoctrinated for generations, indoctrinated to give our power over so unconsciously we don't even know we're doing it. So unconsciously to external power, authoritative power outside of ourselves. Even so much as, most, you're asking about challenges. Not a parent that I talk to does not have a challenge with their child and video games. Right. So we have been unconsciously indoctrinated to give our power over to video games. And every parent I talk to will say it's their way of connecting. No one wants their child on endless video game time. Fortnite, all these companies that are that are making these video games to addict our children. So we understand that that's happening, but what you're speaking of is the nail on the head. It's the heart of the matter, is that we have unconsciously given away our power and our sovereign authority to begin with. So we feel at the effect of something like how to navigate video games in a family. And it might sound so trite, but it's so important because there's so many power struggles happening in the family, and discontent happening in the family. But also on the other side of it, there's so much opportunity when you take back that sovereignty, you know. And it may call for, I know with our son, we didn't do very many video games and things like that, media. That was just our choice. But what it did for me was it assisted me to find a voice for myself and have more intimate conversations with other parents and say, you know, we're really raising our son in this way. So when he comes over to your house, which we're not doing now, but, you know, can we find a way to accommodate? Or I'd have all the kids. I have 3 kids living with us right now. You know, we would be the house to house them. What it did was it ultimately brought me closer to parents, even though it was maybe an uncomfortable conversation. Underneath it all of us parents want the same thing. No parent wants their child on a video game for 10 hours a day, 5 hours a day. But no one is like the first person to be having the conversations with each other. And, you know, parenting can be such an island experience. When you start connecting in community, right, it also helps us to empower ourselves and each other to reach out in community.
Yeah, you're bringing up another point as well. And that is, I mean, the mere fact that you would reach out and talk to a neighbor like that, you know, people don't do that the way they used to do it years ago. People are in silos. They don't talk to each other. They don't know who their next door neighbor is in many cases. And I think this is also a call for us to take care of each other. You know, we do self-care, and then we take care of ourselves. We check in with each other. You know, I went by my dad's house. You know, he's passed over, but I went to check on the house yesterday. And there was a note in the mailbox that said, neighbor, the community is putting together a list so that we all know who we are. If emergencies come up, we can call each other. If we see anything strange happening at your house, we can call. You know, but it wasn't just about neighborhood watching thieves.
Right.
But it was about, you know, like we're living in this community. We should know each other.
Right.
And I said, oh, I'm going to answer this back, even though I'm not living in that house. But I just thought I would reach out. But I think this is a good time for people to ask themselves that question. Do you know your neighbor?
I love that. I love that. And when I first started, especially because it happened to be around technology, I was nervous at the time. I remember I was nervous, and I did it anyway. And, you know, we've often spoken, my husband, Jamie, we call it Cafe Lula over here because he's such a good cook. But he's been doing that since COVID. Or actually before COVID, but he'll bring food over to our neighbors. And then our neighbor, we just were walking this morning, she was out, she sends us, you know, banana loaves and banana bread. And so I think that what you're speaking of is so important, A, for parents, but B, for just our community at large. We can feel like islands. Right. And so what you're speaking about is so important, you know, to get to know the people around you and take the risk. And you will find that the other person wants the same thing that you want. You know, Jamie just said to our son, you know, after Thanksgiving, they're going to make sandwiches and take them out to the homeless and create little bags and take them around our neighborhoods, because the homeless challenge has exacerbated during this time too. Right. So there are so many small ways, like you're saying with that note, and you're taking the time, even though you're not part of that neighborhood living there now, you're going to indoctrinate yourself into that community. Yeah.
And Heather just texted us and said that she takes flowers to her neighbors every Friday. And she was just saying that's what she's doing, and helping to create community. You know, it reminds me, when I was growing up, that's how the neighborhood was. We knew every single person in every house. I mean, we knew where the Parchments lived. We knew where the Abrams lived. We knew where the Grimes lived. We knew where the Gales lived. We knew everybody, and everybody knew us as kids So we
That's
were
what I was
a
thinking.
little bit. Our parents knew it before we got home. You know,
You bet.
that we were doing something a little off center. You know, my mother said, "Oh, we saw what you did." How did you know? She may not. She didn't necessarily throw the neighbor under the bus.
That was the original neighborhood watch.
Yeah, they were the original ones. You know, like we know all the kids. You know, I think that we need to give ourselves permission to go back to that, and back to the video games. You know, when we were called inside, that was like punishment. Punishment was to stay inside. You know, because as kids we wanted to be outside. We wanted to ride our bikes. We wanted to race around the block. We wanted to play football on the streets. We wanted to do a lot of stuff. So to have to come in and do something, that was sheer punishment, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's a different generation, I know, where these kids have been indoctrinated and pulled into a game, a video game, rather than shooting a hoop or playing basketball or even playing chess or checkers or something to that effect. It's a different thing for me. I can't relate to it. I would think it'd be hell for me right now to sit down and play a video game, particularly if a good book is right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or to do something else. But I know it's a different generation, and I know parents have to navigate it differently. And I think you're doing an extraordinarily good job at assisting people to assist in navigating that particular slippery slope, because those games are addictive, and many of them prime kids to be able to. I mean, the way that they started fighting war, you know, recently is like a person is sitting, not even in the war, but pushing a button, sending a rocket and killing somebody he doesn't even know. You know, there's just no connection. And a lot of those guys were video hacks. And, you know, they were very astute in learning how to play video games. And they've just taken that talent into warfare, you know. And so a lot of that is a slippery slope and very dangerous.
Yes. And I think it goes back to what you were saying. You know, what I know is that every one of us, be it child, adult, whether you're a parent, doesn't matter. Every one of us wants the same thing, and that is human connection. And so in this time, yes, it is more challenging to walk the path of how to really navigate something like video games, or yes, we live farther apart. Kids are, you know, we take them to play dates. It's different than it was. But I will tell you what's the same is you were speaking about this last Sunday, I believe this past Sunday or the Sunday before, about mental laziness. And
this past Sunday,
This past Sunday, trust me, it's like I have so much compassion for us parents. So this is not meant as disrespect in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's requiring of us and calling forth from us to let go of the laziness that says, oh, it's the way they connect, or, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Yes, that is accurate. And any child, if you take the extra effort to call another parent or do whatever you have to do. We used to have a thing at our house, the phones go in the, you know, the basket when people walk in, because they would rather play with each other. They would rather be with each other. If we really give them the environment to get to make the choice, they will make the choice. And it's not to say all technology, it's not to demonize technology. It's for us to be very empowered with how we want to guide our next generation, you know?
Absolutely. You're talking about going from enthrallment to involvement. Instead of being enthralled with video games, actually being involved with each other. And of course, everybody, you know, we're tired. We want to have moments alone by ourselves, you know, but ultimately we do want contact. We do want to be involved. And someone was writing to us that many times the kids are going into their world of escapism. They're escaping the virtual world as a way to escape this world that is fraught with uncertainty, lack of vision, political polarization. There's no, society doesn't really carry a vision of possibility other than a stock market rising or falling. You know, so you can understand, we can kind of understand why the kids want to escape. Because you turn on the news any given night, there's no there's no individual standing up and talking about the vision of possibility. You know,
Yes.
we can end homelessness by the year 2035. We can clean up the waters by the year so and so and so and so. We can stop climate change. You know, there's no serious mandate of vision that inspires people. You know what I mean? And so adults and kids are prone to escape that
Yes.
world unless there's some type of spiritual practice that has either come from suffering or from insight. Because once you have a spiritual practice, your vision comes from within yourself. And then you're inspired by that vision to move forward. And regardless of what's happening in the world, you're pulled by a vision, you see. And this is what we need more of. This is what we need more of. Teachers and individuals that are inspiring. I was just myself saying that. I just had the thought that wouldn't it be wonderful if we no longer ever again in human history put up another statue of a soldier, of a general leading a war, but the statues that were put up, if we put up statues, were of teachers that were guiding the hearts and minds of the students, real teachers that taught you how to read, that gave some kind of values of love and compassion and community. Teachers, and even the frontline workers, perhaps, you know, and but people, you know, but our country, you know, they have all these war generals, you know. What about peace generals?
Love
Have
that.
statues. You know, it's a different, we have to actually have different values and have a different vision around those values. And then I think there'll be a lack of escapism and more involvement in the vision that we are articulating, you see.
I love that. I'm on fire with that. And I think we should have a challenge for everyone watching, right? So whether you're a parent, not, we're all going through COVID. That's what we all have in common right now. But I love this idea. And you were also speaking to this Sunday about what if the media was only giving us, you know, like someone went into remission today, someone forgave, you know, and made amends to their partner today. And so, you know, people got closer today. What if we, all of us, took on this challenge? Do you have a vision for your life right now? And do you have a vision for either your partnership? Do you have a vision for your family? Because many people actually, again, intellectually, we think we have a vision, but we don't really invest and become involved. Let's all, what if every one of us watching right now really took it on as a challenge? I'm going to speak. I'm going to first get still and really ask myself, what is the highest vision for my family? And then I'm going to get it so clear, and I'm going to talk about that with my children, with my spouse, with my friends, every chance I get. And in the midst of, you know, yeah, your child still wants to watch more video, have more video time, but infuse that, work with right where you are right now.
Right.
And use that with like, yes, this is where we are. And we're breaking out, we're breaking through, we have a higher vision. Let's do this. The power of vision, of course, you are the imminent vision process. You know, this is your territory that I'm speaking on, but hey, I'm so on fire.
People perish. We're all speaking on it. It's okay.
Yeah, well, I know you're the original, but I'm just saying it's something that is free. It's available to us all the time. We can do it right now, whether we're doing the dishes or the laundry. And it's something that, what if we got so impassioned about actually verbalizing it and speaking about it so much in our family that our children knew, oh, this is the vision that is being held. That's how manifestation will happen. That's how you'll move through, right?
Yeah, and again, that moves people from escapism, and they move more into participation. You know, so we can start a situation, you know, instead of watching television, television. You know, you actually write down, even if you don't talk to somebody else, you tell yourself a vision by writing it down, which and reading it to yourself, which gives you the tactile sense, the actual looking at it, reading it, hearing your own voice. So you see it, you feel it, you know, but maybe on a regular course. And this is what parents didn't even do with their kids. We could do it to ourselves, you know. We like watching television, but either before or after, we actually tell a vision to ourselves. You know, it can be weekly. This week, I'd like to see a greater expression of such and such in my life. By the end of the year, I'd like to see I'm holding a vision, a possibility of greater health. Somebody wrote to us that they're beating cancer today, you know. So, you know, you begin to, and for that person who wrote that in, I suggest that you write down what you're going to do with your life as you're healed. What are you going to do in 2021? What are you going to do in 2022? What are you going to do in 2023? Just cast it as a vision so that your body gets activated around your desire to do whatever it is you're called to do in 2021, 2022, 2023, so the body can heal itself based on your vision, you see. So yeah, I think this is possible. This is great, because many kids, because, you know, with this unprecedented situation we're moving through, many kids don't have a vision. Their vision is bleak.
Right.
You know,
right.
they can't talk to their friends. They can't go anywhere. However, consciousness transcends everything. And if enough people begin to have a vision about possibility in their own individual life, the life of their family, the life of their city, it will transcend the conditions and the circumstances we're living in now, which goes back to what we were saying earlier. We are sovereign beings. We don't need an external authority figure. The only authority we need is the authority of our own conviction of the truth. And then we'll see things change, you see.
Exactly. I'll give you a quick example. I was just working with a mom today, and she has 3 children, and the youngest is sort of the one that they're having some behavioral challenges with, let's just say. Yeah. And he is wielding a lot of, let's just say, power in their family, right? Because everyone is at their wit's end with this little boy. And so we've been working with this, and it's just hitting me that I didn't even realize we've been working with what you're talking about. So we've been talking to her about, well, what are the spiritual qualities that you want to bring into your family when he is in the midst of this behavior? And she said compassion and support. We want, instead of the other 2 kids rolling their eyes and, you know, hitting him back or threatening him, or we want to show that we are the parents, and the qualities that we stand for in our family are, when one of us is having trouble and a challenge, we're compassionate and we are supportive. It doesn't mean condoning, because that's another whole topic, but our misperceptions as a culture about accepting and condoning, we're not condoning. Right. And so she was just telling me today how powerfully the energy in their family is shifting. It didn't happen on a dime. It didn't necessarily happen instantaneously. It's something that they're each taking on inside of themselves to practice. And because they're all participating, like you're speaking of, something's happening in their family. They're manifesting a different energy in their home. Because it started with those spiritual qualities and that vision, and speaking about it and practicing it.
Right. Well, you're talking about everything is a state of consciousness. A family has a state of consciousness. A spiritual community has a state of consciousness. And though we're using this word consciousness, you invited people to put their attention on particular qualities. And those qualities got inundated into the field. And those qualities then transcend any circumstance. And so again, it's giving a person authority, spiritual authority, to change a circumstance by raising consciousness. This is the teaching of the ages. Now, before we close this particular part, I want to remind people that this is part 1. I want to have a deeper conversation with Suzi again, a little bit more about spiritual authority, about the sovereignness of our own being. Part 2 is going to be on my app. So if you don't have the app, just go to michaelbeckwith.com, sign up for the app. And then these things and other offerings will be there on the app. Suzi, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
SuziLula.com SUZILULA.com, and you will find everything that you need there. Have lots and lots of guided meditations, free offerings, classes, support, just support, spiritual support.
Very, very good. When we go to my app, I'm going to begin by telling a funny story about Suzi. Years ago, in which she took on a very powerful minister on my behalf. I didn't ask her to, but she did. And
you guys got to go.
I won't mention anybody's names, but I will tell you the story.
Right.
But she's a firecracker, and somebody had shown me a little disrespect, and Suzi jumped out of her seat and said, "Don't you ever speak to my reverend like that again. Do you know who he is?" And she started just really lambasting this individual. And just to give you the context, she was the only white person in the room. Everybody there was black. The minister was black. And I had to sit Suzi down and say, "Wait a minute, I can handle this."
Tried to sit me down.
She won my heart that day, that she was not going to let anything go down for her teacher. She had my back, my front, and everything.
I got you. Well, we need you around. You are the preeminent, spiritual teacher right now. And this globe, our world, just craves these teachings right now more than ever. And we're so blessed and fortunate to have just what you were saying about me is actually really true about you. You're such in a high mystical state 24/7, and yet you have this way of being able to make it very practical and real for us that we can implement it and practice. And we just need your teachings, and we're very, very lucky and grateful that you're here for us. So we have to do everything we can to support and lift you up because we need your teachings.
Thank you, Suzi. Somebody wrote down, glad to know that part of Suzi. Somebody else wrote down, bodyguard.
I'm little, but I'm mighty. Don't mess with me.
Suzi, thank you for being with me today. SuziLula.com is where you can find her great work. She's a great spiritual therapist. And MichaelBeckwith.com to get my app. And of course, for those of you who have never tuned in to AgapeLive.com, that's our website, you can see the Sunday services, 6:45 a.m. Way of Meditation service, and then 2 services following that, 9 o'clock and 11:30, preceded by a half-hour meditation service. So tune in to Agape. We have good music, good message going out to thousands and thousands of people all around the world. And every day at 8 o'clock, there's a wonderful affirmative prayer time with one of my practitioners. And every day at 12 noon Pacific time, wonderful time to meditate with the community as well. 5:30 on Fridays, spiritual gatherings. So there's a lot of offerings. Go to our website, AgapeLive.com, and see those offerings. We're here to serve you. Until then, Suzi, God bless you. We'll be on the Zoom call in just about 5 minutes.
All right, let's meet over there, everybody. Go to that app. It's an amazing app.
Peace and blessing.
Thank you, Rev. Love you.
Now, because we had a little technical issue, part 1 of this is going to be on my Instagram, and part 2. So tell your friends you can see the whole interview, part 1 and part 2, on my Instagram Live. Have a bright day, everyone.
Thank you, Rev.
Thank you, Suzi.
Love you.
Love you.